ministry. And this year, a very good friend of mine is the person who gets that award. For those of you that don't know, Ray Monroe is no longer working with GMAC. And for what it's worth, Ray Monroe is someone who I met when I was still a thin, young, full of vinegar guy. So is he, and boy did we battle. He's got an acceptance thing here that I had him write up, and I'll read some of that. But let me say off the top, just before I get to that Ray was a guy who you could count on, and for those who worked in task forces or in units that you have your peers in, you know what that means. And I'm sure everybody, every single one of us in here, thinks back to the group we had, we worked with, what a great group that was, or whatever. I've had the pleasure of having that twice in my career. And the first one was Ray Monroe was a big part of it. He was a competitive, argumentative, crusty son of a bitch. But he was a great, and I mean a great investigator. You know, you put him in a room with somebody, back in the day, we had the Salvadorian, influx before this, whatever's going on in border. I'm talking in the early 90s, these guys, they came over with, they still had Christian values, and boy did Ray use that. Oh my God. Today that no longer works, those that call themselves Christian aren't, but back then, they still were. That's don't cut to those know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let me read a little bit of what he says here. For what it's worth, and this is the sad part of it, Ray was just suddenly started feeling that his mouth wasn't working right, and that his tongue was a little thick in his mouth, and he wasn't enunciating right, and he went to just get some medical tests, and he was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. So he's no longer working, but he's still out there pounding away. His little tidbits about Ray is one of his sons, I'm trying to think of his son, is a stepson, but he raised him, is actually an offensive guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. He was with the Cleveland he was with Cincinnati Bengals last year. Now he's with the Steelers. And that's where Ray is, his family at the moment. He writes, "Thank you very much for presenting me with the Southern California President's Award." He apologizes for not being here. He talks about his oldest son, who's a staff sergeant in the Army, and that's where he's at Fort Gordon, Alabama. And the funny thing, I got a picture. He texts me and tweets me, and he's all into the new thing. But anyway, there's a picture of him on my phone getting he had the key to the sheriff. He's standing with some old country sheriff getting the key to the city. That's just Ray, though. He's probably been there for 15 minutes. He says, "It's funny how things turn out. If you told me I'd be an insurance investigator when I was still looking for a career, I would have laughed at you. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life when I took a job working as a private investigator at age 18, investigating railroad and maritime accidents. It was just a place I heard was hiring, and I needed a job." And if you sit back and think of particularly insurance people, maybe not the law enforcement guys, I'm not sure how it works in your world, but insurance people, we just want a job. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves in this thing in the insurance industry, and pretty soon our natural personalities drive us to whatever end of it. Accountants, I can't figure those guys out, but the SIU people, I understand. At 29, I was hired by an insurance industry where I had the privilege of working with fantastic group of investigators, many who still work in the area this day. And he kind of says the same thing I said about how you think, when you're with a group of people and you're working in a team like you guys do, or I know all you. I've worked with 3/4 of y'all, and you think that boy, this is it. These are the guys. Man, we're the powerful team. We're the ones. It's kind of a good feeling. And Ray was one of those guys who could probably create that semblance anywhere he went. Anyway, he worked at several companies. In the last 10 years, he's at GMAC, which, General Motors, basically. And I don't know if you knew the history of GMAC as I did before he went there. It was one of those places where they kind of had that old guy in the corner was the SIU guy, or maybe they had a TPA and they had a couple people assigned. Yeah, you're the SIU people or whatever. Well, they took that to new heights over there and created essentially an expectation that's now lent itself to a unit still understaffed, but at least they're starting looking at putting more and more people in there. And one in the room has taken the position that Ray had to leave. I have immense respect for those of you that fight to prevent the bad guys from taking our money. And for fighting the madness of your corporate offices that sometimes seem to want to pay them. That's no offense, Dan. Okay, I don't want you to take it. I hold the IASIU in high esteem and can recall meetings before there was an IASIU where we would collectively address the purveyors of fraud as a group. And that is true. I don't know if I see anybody in here, but maybe Arvin, maybe. But there was a time, way before IASIU, when the group of us would get together, actually in Brand Boulevard of the 500 building, believe it or not. Oh, Pete was there, and we would say, let's get this lawyer. Okay. These were the days. And we would go after him and not pay him and run him out of business if we could. Ray was one of the first people to obtain a CIFI designation, and for what it's worth, his IASIU number is 1106, which, if you think about yours, that probably tells you where Ray comes in on the IASIU register.
Mine's 564.
Talks about his having his illness and he had to retire. He references having a passion for work, and I can attest to the fact that he did have that. Even after he was diagnosed, he went on to work many of his cases as close to conclusion as possible, just because he can't leave anything undone. He thanks us for the award, and for that, he says, seize the day. And this is I'll accept it on his behalf and let him know how much you guys appreciated it, whether you do or you don't. And I certainly did. This is Ray Monroe, the Award of Merit, recognizing exceptional effort in the fight against insurance fraud. Ray Monroe. Okay. Why don't we give a couple things away? We got more liquor and we got this, I don't know. So.